If you want to blow up your chest with weighted calisthenics, it's about time you embrace deficit weighted push-ups. In my opinion, these are superior to normal push-ups off the floor and even weighted dips, which is a bold statement, but I can back up everything I say. So in today's video, I'm going to show you the absolute best of the best variations of this brutally effective watermelon pec developer. So please try them out. They are seriously underrated. I cannot stress how amazing the gains will be. So the first and most important variation by far, you can never beat this, I have tried them all, is the deficit push-ups done off 2 plyometric boxes with a bench right behind you that is either equivalent in height or slightly above. So if you got 2 12-inch plyo boxes, your bench should also be 12 inches or no more than about 14 inches. And in terms of loading, you will want to wear a military backpack designed for special forces, long rucks, and being able to withstand a crazy amount of weight. It should not be snapping even if you're loaded with 200 pounds. Your safety matters, and the best part is there's a lot of cheap options, which I'll put in the description box. And keep in mind, I'm not sponsored. I'm just saying this is the way to load it. Of course, you can also use a weighted vest if you happen to have one already, but the most efficient option is having a backpack and then loading it with 10-pound plates, which are plentiful in 99% of gyms, in addition to possibly, if you have access to them, putting chains in your backpack, because now it's kind of like sand in the sense that the chains will mold to the exact shape of that bag, such that you can put even more load. So what I typically do is throw in 90 pounds of chains and then the rest is all 10-pounders. This way, it's very easy for me to get 150 and beyond. So loading capacity is never going to be an issue for pretty much all of you. You see what I bench, yet I've yet to max out my backpack. So don't think this is some baby lift. No. This is something that will allow you to go as heavy, if not more heavy, for rep work than weighted dips. And so that's the setup. In terms of grip width, you want your hands to be around shoulder width apart because you're getting a super deep stretch. Look at the arm bend in the bottom. Are you a torso dominant lifter? Are you struggling to build even your freaking tries? This will do it for you, man. I guarantee it, because now you're no longer restricted by the floor. If we agree that dumbbells done with light weights provide a greater stretch on the pecs because we're able to come fully out, get in this position here, right? If we accept the truth that a barbell is limiting because it's touching you, right? Can't we extend that logic to the push-up? What is your restriction? The floor, coupled with your arm length. Obviously, the longer your arms, the deeper it's gonna be. But if you have average length or even shorter, you gotta do the deficit. And even if you somehow had this crazy build, it's still not the deepest for your anthropometry. That's why we have to look at leverages, not absolute ROM. And in this case, the pecs benefit tremendously from weighted stretching, and this is what all the research is starting to point to. To the point where I'm even gonna suggest, if you want pure pec hypertrophy, just do partials in the bottom, leaving a slight bend in your elbow at the top. So just pump them out like this. They're lengthened partials. Works excellent for this variation. Now, in terms of what you can put up, it'll be similar to your flat benching numbers. So take the total weight, subtract your body weight. That's what you should begin with. Then progressively overload from there on, which is very efficient to do because unlike dips, they're a lot more stable in the sense that you have 2 points of contact, your hands and your feet, getting that bridging effect. That makes such a huge difference when you're going heavy. I know some of you haven't dipped crazy amounts, but as someone who's done 5 plates now and have done rep work with 4 plates on the regular, what limits me in those cases and why I don't really do them as heavy anymore is that it's much harder to stabilize. Not only do the weights swing around a bit more, but I have to have that much more body control and can never allow myself to slack off on the dip. Whereas push-ups, I can drop them out for months, come in, replicate the exact same technique, and come out from when I left off while being able to overload to my highest potential. There's never any problems with stability because weights don't swing, they're literally on you, and the core is not gonna give out either, especially if you're training your legs. Now, if you have chicken legs, you're one of those calisthenics guys who never did anything for your core, well, it might be a little bit different, but in that case, you're the problem, not the exercise. Anyone who could do front squats with over 200 pounds is going to be perfectly fine while putting 200 pounds on their back, which they're not even going to freaking do because I don't even do it, and you see what I lift. So I'm just saying, for pretty much everybody watching this video, unless you're a super freak, core strength is not going to be a problem. So please don't tell me, oh, the abs are contracting, you're getting less stability. Shut the fuck up. You don't speak from experience. You're another one of those guys who's contributing to the problem, trying to downplay the basics, when we know for a fact that strong lifters don't have issues with this. Now, another thing compared to dips is that you're biasing the middle chest, not the lower, because you're at a flat angle. Yet, we're getting that same weighted stretch on the pecs, and it's easier on your shoulder joints. Plus, you don't need to have that 2/3 build to agree with dips, because some people, no matter what they do, they're gonna get stern in pain. I can't fully explain why, and I've tried to give solutions around pain throughout the years, which I talked about in this OG gym, but for some reason, those people can still do push-ups at extreme ranges of motion. So this is the next best thing. And like I said, you can lift the same loads as your dips. If you were doing 2 plates for reps on weighted dips, you'll basically get the same amount of load here. Either slightly less or slightly more. It's basically 1-to-1. I wouldn't even stress about the overloading factor. This is not a concern. So there's your basic rundown. Watermelon pecs are guaranteed if you get strong with this. I'm putting my word on that. By the way, if you want more upper chest, you can do deficit push-ups off a decline. Simply adjust your bench 1 stop up, so around 30 degrees, or use a higher plyometric box and get to work. You will find that the stretch is comparable and actually better than not doing a deficit, because you can maintain that level position. See, when you're just using the floor, you're gonna have to arch at the bottom. Otherwise, your face is gonna hit the floor first. So what you'll find is guys tend to do this motion right here where they're caving and they arch their back just to get the range of motion that they want, which is perfectly fine. You will build big pecs doing that, I promise you. But you're taking away from the upper chest bias. You're now doing somewhat of a 15-degree incline or so. You're not maintaining the original position. So you want to minimize spinal extension when trying to hit this area. Stay rigid, which is unfortunately impossible to do when you have the floor blocking you. But with the deficit, you now have the option. So this is the combination. You do flat deficit push-ups for the entire chest, but mostly the mid, and then you do it off a decline if you want more upper chest. Another advantage is that you don't have to buy a camber bar, which goes for everything that I'm showing today. Not a huge expense if you get the Arch Nemesis bar by Bells of Steel. I use it myself, but what if you don't have the space? What if you're going to a commercial gym? What if you're working with what you already got and you still want an equally effective mass builder? Well, this is how you're gonna do it. And off a decline, you got that spotter action naturally built in, because if you fail at the bottom, all you gotta do is drop down on your chest. And then you bring the legs down. You're never at risk, even though you're stretching yourself to the great beyond. All right? Stay in the 5 to 15 rep range to minimize fatigue. You can program them the same way as your barbell bench press. Doesn't make a difference. And in terms of standards, a really good one is a total weight of 300 pounds for 10 repetitions. So if your body weight is 200, I want you to work up to 100 pounds on your back. That's simple. Next, I want to share what I believe is the worst deficit push-up variation, but still worth considering. And that is doing it in a power rack using dip handles while loading yourself with a weighted belt, similar to dips. Why is this problematic? Well, the first issue is if you put up any appreciable load, then you will have to elevate the dip handles. They will be in the middle of your rack, meaning if your bench or box height is below that, which is the case majority of times, then by default, you'll be doing an incline push-up, which isn't a bad variation in itself. This will bias more so the lower chest, similar to dips. So that's why it's such a comparable variation, but it has a worse stimulus fatigue ratio. You gotta load up all kinds of plates. And to top it off, you're not getting as much of a stretch because your chin will touch the implement itself. It's still better than going to the floor. You're getting a couple inches more range of motion, but now it's like a lesser version of a camber bar bench, to the point where I wouldn't really classify it as a deficit weighted push-up. I would just say it's a regular weighted push-up. done in the air. But you could have gotten the same benefits if you just did the exercise off the floor with the backpack. Then the other issue is the belt will often slip down, getting closer to your waist when you go heavy. It could feel really awkward and your reps might not be consistent. So in terms of honest progressive overload, I would consider this ideal. And then another X to this, if we agree that you will have to use higher dip handles, then that means your box height must also be high if you want to get that flat angle, right? If you're doing flat. If you're doing the other variation, fine. How are you going to get up in that position when you have 3 plates suspended off your chest, which was already a challenge to get on in the first place? You're going to hunch yourself over, bring your leg up all the way like a contortionist? Like, how good does your flexibility have to be? Are you even going to be able to load the movement appropriately? In my opinion, most people will not. Unless you're not that strong. So if you're going to do the flat variation, it's best done for higher repetitions using a controlled tempo. Pausing at the bottom, even slowing down the concentric, to be honest with you. You want to do everything like this. Going heavy is not optimal. But if you got 50 pounds, now you can get an awesome stimulus and maybe even lower that height ever so slightly, just stack up a bunch of smaller plates. But that's why I'm saying you got to use a lighter load, because there's only so many that you can suspend, right? You're not going to have over 10-pound plates. How weird would that be? Not to mention the swinging. Oh, and one more thing. In most of these clips, I'm wearing the Kenzui weight vest because this allows me to go lower, because I don't even have the right height to go where I'm supposed to if I want it to be flat, right? So with this, I have a load on my back, and then I have a little bit being suspended. But because the weight plate itself is flat, so it's not vertical, which is going to happen 100% of the time, doesn't matter what the f you do when you're suspending it with the belt. Because it's flat, you can get much deeper. So it doesn't matter if a weighted vest is sagging or not. So you can use a plate loaded vest or any normal one. In my opinion, this is still going to be better than using a dip belt. But still, you won't see me loading up a bunch of plates. So as you can tell, I'm not really a fan of this variation, but I needed to mention it regardless because it would be disingenuous of me to state that it's not effective. It has its merits when approached correctly. And if you do happen to have the optimal setup and you love it, go right ahead. I'm just saying I'd rather wear a backpack and do the other versions. Which leads me on to the final variation, weighted ring push-ups. Notice how I didn't use the word deficit. There's no need to, because rings automatically have that feature built in. Just by you suspending them, the torso is allowed to go through the rings. Not to mention them coming apart, thus maximally stretching the chest. So what's the advantage here? You're essentially mimicking cables, machines, and dumbbells with calisthenics training. And you get the squeeze simultaneously. This is unique because all the other variations I showed you are purely length and biased. You're getting the stretch and that's it, which is excellent. That's by far the most hypertrophic part. But with rings, you get a stretch and a squeeze. Maximum converging every single time. Beautiful resistance profile. You will feel your pecs pumping like nothing else. And the result is you're significantly weaker because all the joint angles are stressed. Then to top it off, because you can rotate your hands, this is the easiest one on the joints. Because, let's say, you're stretched out here, doesn't feel so good, right? You can go neutral. If fully neutral ain't right, you can go somewhere in the middle. Or you can just rotate as you go. Whatever your anthropometry has dictated to be optimal, you'll do it. So for me, either like supinating at the bottom or being semi-neutral. And regarding the whole ring push-up form, I do not subscribe to competitive gymnastic standards. I don't give a shit about that. And neither do you if you're watching this video. We're purely using this as a hypertrophy tool. So don't think you got to do RTO at the top with maximum protraction and lean. You don't need to do that if you're trying to build watermelon pecs and stronger triceps. Because if you start living by those standards, you're going to be forced to lift so much less weight, and you're really just refining your technique. In my opinion, mechanical tension is not going to be optimized. So just load this like anything else. But You don't want to go too low on the repetitions because there is somewhat of an unstable effect, which you will get better at with time, okay? So the first time you do these ring push-ups, you're going to be shaking all over the place. It could be difficult to get even 20 repetitions, but the strength is there. You just got to learn to move in pattern. It's not that unstable. Keep in mind the feet are propped, which is an advantage over ring dips. Eventually, you'll be able to do more weight on this than the ring dips, which many people have done 2 plays for reps. That means it's totally possible to go above that on the floor. So even if it could be a little bit discouraging right now, know that the long-term potential is certainly there. And out of all the steps I showed you, this is by far the most minimalist. All you need is something to suspend those rings off, which could be a power rack, a doorway pull-up mount, etc. Because after that, you could just load up anything in a backpack because you won't be going as heavy right off the bat. Then once you get good, you like the movement, okay. You get the military backpack, you invest in some additional load, and now you're good to go. But the fact is, you won't need that much compared to the other variations. And another thing is, you can also do the decline ring push-up. So all the benefits previously mentioned on the decline regular deficit push-ups apply here. Better for the upper chest, and now we get a full squeeze on them. Can you think of any other calisthenics movement that allows you to do this? And you can line up your hands directly with the direction of the upper chest fibers. So you can use that semi-neutral position. You're going to be all good. So I highly recommend weighted ring push-ups. They will complement everything that you do and overall make you more resilient in the long term. So with that said, I got nothing more to say on deficit push-ups. Please try them out. They're incredibly effective. I want more guys doing them. Post your clips. Let me know what you can lift, and I'll talk to you all next time.